Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1998 sci-fi television adaptation, The X-Files: Fight the Future. The X-Files is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and this is also a really good movie. In a lot of ways, it's like a extended episode of the TV show, but in a way that doesn't really feel like it's just meant for the small screen. Like this still is something that has an epic size and scope to it that you can't get from the TV show. And it's not only something that's rewarding for fans of the show, but it's also really enjoyable and entertaining for people who are novices, people who aren't maybe that into the show or are just getting into the show. In fact, I think this is a perfect way for people to um, kind of, dip their toe in the X-Files pool, so to speak, and then go more in depth and go in deeper afterwards. Because in all honesty, that's what I did. I saw this film on VHS before I even actually checked out the show. And then whenever the show had reruns on TV on Fox, uh, I watched it. It had been a while since I saw it last, so I kind of forgot how fantastic this film was. It should be held in higher regard than it is in a multitude of ways. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the film, though, I would like to give a special shout out to Slayer for requesting this review. The X Files Fight the Future is directed by Rob Bowman. And prior to directing this film, he directed a film called Airborne, which is really just a silly teen comedy about rollerblading. I think it was roller. It might have been inline skating. I don't know. I don't know the difference. And it was not really the kind of film that would make you think that this is the guy to direct the X-Files movie. But thankfully, he had a lot of experience with the X-Files before he got the job to direct this film, because he had directed a fair amount of episodes prior to this. In fact, he would go on and direct 33 episodes total when it comes to the show. And he really vibed with Chris Carter enough to the point where he became an executive producer. He became more creatively involved with the show around the time of the film's release. So he was definitely a guy who was not a babe in the woods, so to speak. He was not somebody who was just thrown in there because they were a hired gun and they needed a director to direct the X-Files movie. No. Uh, he was definitely very well qualified for the job. And it's a big part of why this film is so great, because you have a director who already knows the ins and outs of the series. He knows the lore, he knows the mythology, he knows the characters, and he knows the style and the flair of the show visually. And he maintains that same look and feel and atmosphere of the show, but he also is able to take it up another notch with the wide shots and the type of direction that you couldn't really necessarily do at the time for a show on Fox because you didn't have the budget. So what you get here is a souped up version of the X Files, and from the very first sequence that takes place in the past, like 30, I think it's like 32 million years ago. Uh, 35 million years ago, 35,000 BC, maybe not million. That's a little too far back. But 35,000 BC, during the Ice Age, and what will eventually become North Texas, you get this crazy wild sequence involving Neanderthals and them encountering really vicious aliens. And despite the fact that it's kind of a silly idea, it actually turns out to be a really uh, uh, tense and uh, genuinely thrilling opening sequence. And that kind of crazy, wild stuff is very much in the DNA of the X-Files. So right from the beginning, you definitely feel like the film is in the right hands, and then you go from that to the sequence involving the building with the bomb and Mulder and Scully, and the the execution and the excellence just continues from Rob, because that entire sequence is full of tension as well, and suspense, and the way that he shoots the explosion of the building is really strong and very solid when it comes to the camera work, especially the wide shot. And the director also has these moments that allow Mulder and Scully to really take center stage, as they should, when it comes to the scenes that they do share with one another. And then when it needs to be atmospheric, when it needs to be creepy, when it needs to be eerie, it does that. He manages to really uh, nail that a part of the film, and that part of the X-Files, because that's a big part of the X-Files, is that kind of, eerie, moody, creepy atmosphere. And there's a lot of set pieces in this that genuinely have this epic size and scope and feel to them. Like the cornfield sequence that then winds up transitioning into the bee scene with all the bees and the enclosure, in the middle of this field, or the various different sequences involving the alien virus. And then it all culminates with this absolutely epic and stunning finale in Antarctica. The way that he shot the underground alien spacecraft, and the scene when Mulder is going down there and trying to find Scully, and he's in a race against time because he's got to administer the vaccine, and just the way that Rob showcased the effects, the production design, the art direction of the spaceship and the aliens is awesome. It really is. And then you have everything that happens after it. This scene that almost seems like something straight out of Aliens, when the entire spaceship is it makes you think it might be starting to self-destruct, but really what's happening is it's trying to it's trying to preserve itself, so it's getting ready to take off. And Mulder and Scully have to get off the spaceship before it flies away off into space. Otherwise, they'll never be seen again. And they have to deal with that, but then they also have to deal with these aliens that are thawing out at the same time. And it's something straight out of Aliens, because the aliens are waking up and they're breaking out of their pods, and Mulder and Scully have to go through this tunnel in order to escape, and they get out onto the ice, and then Mulder watches the spaceship fly away, and it's stunning. I can only imagine how breathtaking it would have been to have seen that in the theater back in 1998. So this is definitely a film that delivers when it comes to dynamic visuals and when it comes to everything that you are looking for when it comes to the direction for an X-Files film. It still captures the same style and flair and overall vibe of the show, but just kicks it up another notch with a lot of big, grand, cinematic sized moments of spectacle, some really good usage of the framing and directing techniques to just create a film that looks like this epic, big budget version of the X Files. And then you have a screenplay by Chris Carter. And I've seen some criticisms from people about how it doesn't really explain enough for people who aren't that well versed into the show, so they're kind of lost when it comes to like the cigarette smoking man and some of these other things. And I can kind of see that, but I think there's still enough there that you know that they're a threat and you know that they're up to no good and you know that they're trying to not only stop Mulder and Scully, but also screw over the rest of the world. So it's not one of those things where you're not sure who's the bad guy and who is on the side of good. So I don't really agree with it being something that's too hard to follow in that regard. Even when it comes to the mythology as well, even when it comes to the stuff with the conspiracy theories and the stuff involving the alien takeover and everything involving, Project Paperclip and all this other stuff. I don't really think that it's something that's that hard to follow. And I think Carter did a good job balancing this fine line when it comes to creating a screenplay that people who don't watch the show every week can still understand and comprehend and enjoy, as well as fans of the show who do watch the show every week. Like, I think he did a really good job with that fine line. And I love the way that it starts out in the Ice Age with the cavemen, the Neanderthals fighting the aliens and the black oil, and it's just insane and batshit and all the kinds of stuff that I love about the show. And then you get that whole bit with the kid, and he winds up falling into a sinkhole and he gets exposed to the black oil. And then you get to the bombing sequence. And I really like how Chris Carter handles the structure of this plot and how he handles how the plot moves along. I genuinely do. I think he did a great job with that because it hooks you in with this fun, crazy bit during the Ice Age that features some genuinely good practical effects by Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Gillis. And you also have, the moments where, things are a little more grounded with the whole stuff with the bombing, which that was nice to see. That was a nice change of pace for Mulder and Scully. Work. This is when they're working for the FBI because the X Files have been shut down, and now you get to see them in a different kind of action, in a different scenario. And I really love how Carter uh, finds a way to connect that bombing with the alien conspiracy about the alien virus. I thought that was really clever, and how he set it up where it was a cover up, and how you already kind of felt something was off because of what happens with Machad, who just stays there and just rubs his face and then the bomb explodes. So you're thinking, man, that just didn't seem right. And then you find out later on that, yeah, there's a reason for that because it was a cover up for people who were infected by this alien virus. And I love the idea of the alien virus as well. I think that's really cool, and I think that's different. And you don't necessarily see a lot of alien invasion movies or alien films that deal with an alien virus. And I like how it just turns your body to jelly, and the virus incubates and grows a full grown alien that just pops out of your chest. I thought it is kind of similar to Alien in that regard, but I don't think it's too derivative to the point where I think it's the same thing. And I just think that is something that's honestly rather creepy and horrifying and disturbing. And it's another element of what I love about the X-Files, the creativity. And it's definitely on display when it comes to Carter's screenplay for the film. And another thing that I love about the X-Files, of course, is the dynamic between Mulder and Scully. And that's still just as strong as it is in the strongest episodes here. Their banter when they're working together trying to find the bomb is gold. And so is all the other moments between the two. And I really love how it shows that Scully is willing to essentially sacrifice her career to clear Mulder, and Mulder is also willing to allow her to leave and to not be a part of this fight against these aliens or the future. Uh, if she chooses to do so because he cares for her that much. And I really like that about these two characters. And I really like that Carter just emphasized that more when it comes to his screenplay. And I just love how he writes the conspiracy stuff. How it just gets deeper and deeper, and Mulder winds up getting all these hints and this information from this guy named Strugold. Well, not Strugold, that's a different guy. He gets uh, all this information from this guy named Kurzweil. And Kurzweil is actually a friend of Mulder's father. And I like that it provided a little bit more depth to Mulder, added some more character stuff when it comes to his story, and expanded upon what you already knew with the show, with giving a little bit more of what's going on with his father and how his father knew this guy, and I like the moment when he doubts Kurzweil and he thinks that he's just a crack, he's just lying and he never knew his father, but then he goes and finds a photo book and sees that Kurzweil is right. He was friends with his father. And speaking of the conspiracy, I like that it's not just relegated to just one portion, one part of the world. It's not just the cigarette smoking man and other people. It's also global. It's worldwide. You have the UK involved now, and I genuinely like how Scully does ultimately get separated from Mulder, but it's done in a way that is still really effective. And a lot of the time, it might be a problem if you have the two split up, but that isn't the case here because I think it just added an extra amount of suspense to what was already a rather tense, thrilling plot line. And I like how the bees are integrated into it. I like how you have this moment where it seems like they're almost gonna kiss, but then they don't, and then Scully, my bad, Scully winds up getting stung, and then the bee sting actually infects her with the alien virus, and then she gets taken by the cigarette smoking man and his minions, and now Mulder winds up essentially getting helped by this other guy who was a part of the entire conspiracy, and he just can't live with it anymore, and he wants to prevent the worst case scenario from happening and the virus getting out, because initially, what he was told is that the virus was just going to cause people to become slaves to these aliens, and not turn people into jello and turn people into essentially incubators for full grown aliens that are going to invade the earth. So he gives Mulder this vaccine, and now the stakes cannot be any higher. And then he goes to Antarctica, and he finds Scully in one of the pods, and gives her the vaccine. The vaccine screws things up, and the cigarette smoking man gets away, and the alien spacecraft starts freaking out, and the aliens start waking up. And then Scully and Mulder have to find a way to get out of the spacecraft before it flies off. And they uh, get out of the spacecraft, and then Mulder sees the spaceship fly away. And I love the bit where Scully, she humors Mulder when he's asking her, "Did you see it? Did you see it?" And then she's like, "Yeah, I saw it," but she didn't actually see it because she was too tired and worn out. And yeah, is it kind of incredulous when it comes to how they were found in the middle of nowhere in Antarctica? Yes, but it's it's definitely not that crazy when it comes to the X-Files, because the X-Files is not really necessarily the most realistic show to begin with. A big part of why it's so fun to watch even to this day is because it takes a lot of wild leaps of logic when it comes to a lot of things. So it's not necessarily something that's a deal breaker for me. And the film basically ends with, Mulder and Scully deciding to remain together and team up to fight the future. And the X Files is reopened, and the cigarette smoking man and his minions have to stop whatever plans that they're trying to put in motion, because the X Files is no longer closed, and it sets things up for the next season of the show in grand fashion. Um, there's just so much about this script that is just great and just really works. Um, and I think it really comes down to, Chris Carter. And this was when Chris Carter was in his bag. He was in his bag at this particular point in time. Because Chris Carter later on, around the time of the X-Files reboot, for instance, or the newer seasons, he was no longer in his bag anymore, or his bag had holes in it, and it was a mess. But this is when he still knew what he was doing when it comes to the X-Files, and I think he crafted a really compelling, strong story, and it was really nice to see vicious aliens. See, that was definitely something to help this stand out as well when it comes to some other episodes of the show, because a lot of the stuff involving the aliens, they're kind of passive. They're not really like bloodthirsty. They're not uh like xenomorphs or that kind of thing. But the aliens here, the black oil aliens, like they are straight up nasty. And I liked that Carter had an opportunity to really kind of provide some genuine horror elements to this sci-fi film with the alien sequences, because they're genuinely really tense and at points terrifying. And despite it being PG-13, it's still rather vicious, and still has a visceral edge to it. And the entire movie does, to be perfectly honest. It doesn't feel like something that's, oh, this is just uh tame, or they tone things down for a wider audience, for a wider appeal. That's not the case at all. Uh, but it does have a faster pace when it comes to the plot and the story, and it doesn't have as much of a slow burn aspect to it. So I think that is something that some X-Files fans have pointed out over the years as to why they don't really like the movie. But I respectfully disagree. I think it having a better pace, a tighter pace, not necessarily a better pace, because I think there are a lot of really great episodes of the show that are considered a slow burn. But I think the faster pace and the bigger size and scope to it and the grander scale, I think that actually um, works very well for this film and for this particular story. And I think it was the right call, because if it was just another slow burn storyline, it would make it honestly even more like the show, and in a way that to me would be a negative, because it wouldn't feel like it was that special. It wouldn't feel like it was that different anymore, because there really isn't a big swing. And I think if you're going to make a film based on the X Files, you need to make a big swing, and Carter did that. And I think he definitely uh, marked the right spot here. You know, and I think he was right on target. Now, the film features yet another great uh, cast, and the cast is made up of the great actors and actresses who contributed immensely to the success of the X Files, because it's the X Files movie. But I really liked how they were given the opportunity to be up front and center, and it really was not something where, okay, we're doing a movie based on the show, but we need to have a big name, we need to have a big star, and they need to have a more screen time than David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson, and or these other characters. Uh, it didn't go that route, and if it did, it would have been incredibly stupid. But that has happened before when it comes to these kind of adaptations of TV shows or uh, other properties. But it didn't go that route. Instead, David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson, they're given the opportunity to be the big stars that they are, and their performances in this are genuinely spectacular. They're excellent. Their chemistry is so on point. They uh, had developed just something so special throughout the show, and what you see here is the fruits of that. The fruits of their labor and all they put into the show, and it's a real treat to watch. It genuinely is. And I think honestly the scene where Duchovny, he tells Gillian essentially that, I'm nothing without you, and he's trying to get her to realize how important she is to him, because it seems like she's kind of downplaying some things when she's considering retirement. And I feel that that is genuinely one of the best performances I've seen from David. Like, it is such a strong sequence and is so good. And this is definitely some of his best X-Files related work, and just some of his best related his best film work, period, if I can speak. Sorry, I was just thinking about that scene, and it was just leaving me without words, because it just it left me speechless, to be honest. It was that good. And Gillian Anderson was a big part of that scene too, working as well as it did, because she was just as awesome as David was in that sequence. And man, she really gave her all here. That had to be incredibly uncomfortable when it comes to being in that pod and acting like she's frozen and having the tube down her throat and all that other stuff. And apparently it really was. Like she talked about how it was a difficult scene to shoot, but um, she soldiered on. And also to have like an actual bee crawling around in the back of your neck, because it wasn't an effect. It was an actual bee that they trained to be on her neck during that scene when she gets stung. But yeah, she's great. Duchovny is great, but the rest of the cast, when they have their opportunities, are good too. Mitch Pileggi as Skinner, Armin Mueller-Stahl as Strughold, um Blythe Danner as Cassidy. Martin Landau was a really great addition to the cast as Kurzweil. William B. Davis as a cigarette smoking man, just as menacing as ever in this, but now he's menacing on the biggest screen. And John Neville is a well manicured man. Jeffrey DeMunn from the Blob remake as Braunschweig. Jason Begg from Monkey Shines. He doesn't really have a big role here. He's just a FBI guy at a bomb site, but it's fun to see him in this. Um, you also have Terry O'Quinn, who plays Darius Mashad, the FBI agent in charge when the bomb goes off at the building. Lucas Black, who plays the kid Stevie, who gets infected with the alien virus, with the oil. And yeah, just a really solid, uh, great cast who all deliver A+ performances. And then you have some really great looking cinematography by Ward Russell. The editing by Stephen Mark is not off the mark. It's right on the mark every time. The music by Mark Snow is magnificent. He took his already iconic and incredible score for the show and just notched it up 2 more notches and made it even more epic. And I just love what he did with it. He made it into something that genuinely felt like it not only was capturing the spirit of the score from the show, but also making it into something bigger and more spectacular and more worthy of being uh in a theatrical film. Like he souped it up in a way that kept the same integrity, but just remixed the familiar notes into something that was special in its own right and in its own way. And then the other licensed songs that they got for the soundtrack were also good, even though you didn't hear a lot of them in the film itself. It's still a really great soundtrack to listen to. And the production design and art direction was amazing. The makeup effects of the aliens and the virus, the effects of the virus, was tremendous, and the sound design was great. Like everything about this film, from a technical standpoint, from a writing standpoint, from an acting standpoint, from a directing standpoint, it was just great. And it's also great fun to watch. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of X-Files Fight the Future. And as always, I'll see you later.